Jonathan Kent got sucked into a black hole and is now face to face with the Crime Syndicate? What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detailed Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is going to be an irate review, and we're talking about Superman number 9, written by Brian Michael Bendis, with art by Ivan Reyes, as well as Brandon Peterson. And this is going to be continuing the story of the return of Jonathan Kent, now aged up to approximately 17 years old, instead of the 10, 11, 12-year-old boy that he was before Brian Michael Bendis took over the Superman stories. And I'm not going to lie, there are a few issues with this that I really have, but let's dive into the comic book and see what it's going to do for us. As we dive into Superman number 9, we get the continuation of Jon Kent's saga. But this isn't going to be the opening part of the issue. When we open the issue, it's actually a flash forward instead of a flash back, where we see Superman, his wife Lois Lane, his son Jonathan Kent, and now a daughter that we didn't necessarily know about. We see Supergirl's Kara. They're around and they're gathering for what they would consider World Peace Day. Evidently, Superman finally achieved his main goal of bringing peace to the Earth. And this is far-flung in the future because not only does Superman have a daughter that we didn't necessarily know about, the Bat family is quite a bit larger, and then Wonder Woman happens to have her own children as well. Same thing with Jimmy Olsen. There's a smattering of various heroes around this two-page splash drawn by Ivan Reyes. And as we review this, we see that Jon Kent is worse for wear because he has now a cybernetic arm reminiscent of Cyborg Superman. He's missing an eye, and the Zods are at peace with the Elves, which is a really interesting take on the Superman mythos because you'd never think that that would happen. However, this is all suspended as the Legion, or a legion of heroes or villains, is attacking this World Peace Day, and it has caused an arm of Jonathan Kent to go flying off, and Superman bursts back into his reality. It's as if he was sleeping standing up, his subconscious crying out for that attention that it doesn't necessarily get. Superman explains, of course, that if he was on Krypton, he would be sleeping in a normal sleep cycle, but because he doesn't need sleep because of the yellow sun, so it's just an explanation provided by Brian Michael Bendis to try and create a sense that Superman is above human things like sleep and dreams and that kind of stuff. But as we move forward, we see Jonathan Kent scarfing down his food, trying to regain whatever strength that he needs, and the real key is that Lois and Superman still need to know what happened in the story of Jonathan Kent. Last we found him, he was sucked into some sort of wormhole and ended up in front of the Crime Syndicate, and that's where the double-page splash from Brandon Peterson shows everyone that's currently in this Crime Syndicate of America. We've got Ultraman, we've got Owlman, we've got Superwoman of the Crime Syndicate, Power Ring, Deathstorm, and everybody is accosting this young child that's recently made his way from a parallel dimension into Earth 3, the home of the Crime Syndicate. And as Ultraman sees him, grabs him by the scruff like he's some sort of pup, fires his heat vision into Owlman, and then casts John into a volcano, some sort of prison where he's going to be keeping him. It's not really what you'd expect because Ultraman speaks like some sort of cheap movie crime boss, but he has this kind of keen interest in Jonathan Kent, this son that he never had, but that is the son of the man that he continues to fight in an alternate reality. But despite the confusing fact, he is going to be keeping Jonathan Kent here for the foreseeable future. And in order to impose his will, he gives him a pretty serious demonstration of his power, almost crushing his skull before letting him sit there. And then as this conversation, this story continues, we actually get the impression that Ultraman has alternative purposes for Jonathan Kent, because he's liking the honesty of the situation. He's liking the fact that they can hear each other's heartbeats, the fact that they can be open with each other, and that's one of the things that he really appreciated about fighting Superman on that Earth. But he leaves Jonathan Kent powerless inside this pit of a volcano, this prison. And then as we flash back over to the Fortress of Solitude, we get more decompression. This singular page doesn't serve much purpose other than reinforcing the fact that Superman and Lois are frustrated and angry with the situation, and it's like, hey, continue with the story. So the decompression storytelling style of Brian Michael Bendis, again, doesn't necessarily lend itself to where we're currently at. And as we get into more scenes with Ultraman and Jonathan Kent, it's just a continuous explanation, a very wordy Ultraman dialogue that continues to happen over and over and over again, where he's talking about maybe it's your purpose to be here so that way you can become a better version of Superman. That's what happened to your father. After he hits Jonathan Kent, just knocks him out cold, it's clear that Jonathan Kent is going to be focused on not allowing Ultraman to really invade him and infect his mind with what he's doing, because Ultraman is not necessarily the most put-together person when it comes to this. He's telling stories, he's sobbing, he's crying. It's not what you would expect out of a villainous character, but if we remember anything, it looks like his wife is in an affair with Owlman, and that's from the New 52, so there's all kinds of history as to how this Ultraman isn't quite the same as Clark Kent that we know. But with his resolve dug down deep, Jonathan Kent breaks out of the volcano after a really good Ultraman cry, throwing this boulder outside of the wall, and then exploding forth out onto the ground. It took him a long long time to heal because he didn't have the benefit of this yellow sun because it wasn't there, but it got him to his first city, then it got him to Denver, and then finally it got him to the place where he was really looking for, which was this kind of corrupted Hall of Justice that was commanded by the Crime Syndicate. And while a lot of people weren't receptive for help, he tried to do everything that he possibly could along the way. But the final resolve was that there is only one option for him. He had to go into this corrupt Hall of Justice and find a way to get back to his own universe. He had to take matters into his own hands. No matter how much he was expecting his father to come save him, this was up to Jonathan Kent, and he was so proud of himself as he made his way through this. But when he breaks into the fortress, he finds one thing that he wasn't expecting, and that's his mom. And this mom being the Lois Lane Superwoman of the Crime Syndicate, and this is where we're going to be picking up in issue number 10. So if we take Brian Michael Bendis' Superman story as an individual piece and have it completely unassociated from everything else, I can see how this would be a really fun dive into Earth 3 and the Crime Syndicate and a great introduction for people that aren't necessarily familiar with the characters. However, if we're taking this in the context of the New 52 and DC's Rebirth, then overall this is completely incorrect compared to where things have been in the past. The entirety of the Crime Syndicate was killed inside Darkseid War at the end of Justice League, written by Geoff Johns, and that was the moment that really set up the entirety of Doomsday Clock, the entirety of DC Rebirth. That's when Owlman was snatched out of the Metron chair in this giant blue ball of light. That's when Ultraman was torn asunder by Mobius. That's when Superwoman gave birth to baby Darkseid and then was eviscerated. So these people are not alive in current continuity. However, in Brian Michael Bendis' continuity, they're just a really good, fun set piece that is going to be teaching Jon lessons as he grows up. And as far as Jonathan Kent's concerned, you're questioning what he really thinks about the character, because if he's determining that Jonathan Kent really needs to survive through struggle, which is why in his future version he gave him a cyborg arm and a different eye and all that kind of stuff, then you have to wonder what his thoughts on Jonathan Kent are. As far as the art, Ivan Reyes continues to do stellar work. Brandon Peterson does a pretty good job. Overall, he's got some really good splash pages, but there's something about the way that he renders the characters that just feels them feeling a little bit off compared to the rest of the art or other art styles where these characters are rendered. It's not quite as cartoony or as vibrant or youthful as we see in like Patrick Gleason's art, say that we got in Young Justice or the Super Sons series before that, or in Peter J. Tomasi's Superman. It's kind of a mix of the different styles, and Brandon Peterson's doesn't quite connect with me on the same level. But I want to know what you guys think about Superman number 10, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books and more.